Today we were asked to talk about a beautiful thing, not from from a aesthetic point of view, but because it comes from God. From the Gospel of John. This is the Cana wedding. And on the third day, a wedding was held in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Now Jesus was also invited to the wedding with his disciples. And when the wine was failing, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "What is that to me and you, woman? My hour is not yet arrived." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now, in that place, there were six stone water jars for the purification ritual of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 measures each. Jesus said to them, Fill the waters jars with water," and they filled them to the very top. And Jesus said to them, "Now draw from it and carry it to the chief steward of the feast." And they took to him. Then, when the chief steward had tasted the water made into wine, since he did not know what it was from, for only the servants who had drawn the water knew, the chief steward called the groom. And he said to him, "Every man offers the good wine first, and then when they have become inebriated, he offers what is worse. But you have kept the good wine until now." This was the beginning of the signs that Jesus had accomplished in Cana of Galilee, and he manifested his glory, and his disciples believed him. After this, he descended to Capharnaum with his mother and his brothers and his disciples, but they did not remain there for many days. This is the word of the Lord. Anything he tells you, do it. This is what we would like to tell you today. Anything he will ask you, do it. There are many people here to talk what is behind the gospel, because this is not just the first miracle, is much more. But the center of this is something else. Mary is telling anything he tells you, do it, is told to the servants, and they are the last words said by Mary, which are in the Gospel. Mary will be always present, but the last recorded words in the Gospel are addressed to the servants. Anything he will tell you, do it. In Cana, the disciples of Jesus become his family. And in Cana, the faith of the church is born, because Mary is telling to servants to do something unthinkable of, and that is the image of the church, who are us. Imagine you go to a wedding and the waiter comes, and one of the people invited tells the waiter, do what this young man tells you to do. And he tells the servants to fill big bottles, fill those with water, and bring the water to the master of ceremony, to the maître to the chief, to the chef of the hotel, and bring him the bottle where you know there is water, and bring it as if it was wine. You are out of your mind. It's absurd, because water, if you take water and you pour it, it will remain water. They were risking to be absolutely taken for fool, to be fired, to be humiliated, to be killed even. They had to do something which was unthinkable of, absurd, but they do it. They obey. They do something which is absurd. Even what is absurd. You came here leaving a ill elderly person, a difficult situation in work, and you're here. Is this not absurd? Anything he tells you to do it. Church is called to live in the absurd of faith and entrusting everything to God. The Lord asked us something absurd. He asked us to love each other beyond yourselves. Every marriage, which is a sacrament, starts with this absurdity. Love each other beyond yourselves. It asks you to make a choice. Like a cineplex with many rooms, we have the privilege to see 11 movies instead of 1 or 2 movies. Where do we go today? So one son had a very low mark, 3 out of 10. One is in crisis. Or one who is very happy. So A parent has many characteristics. Can throw a shoe to the kids. I preach to my kids. A parent does something beautiful, especially when the kids are small, are young. He tells them stories. Why stories? Because stories tell much more. To tell something great, there are tales, there is classic literature. Even God the Father, through Jesus, he tells story. The parables are stories, which are talk about things which are much bigger than the things they talk about. So today we will talk about a beautiful story, like a novel. We started with very well with the gospel, and now we move to something which is not so big as the gospel. And we tell you a story that looks like it doesn't have anything to do with the with the with the sentence we have as a theme, which is do everything he tells you. There is this book of 1,200 pages, which is The Lord of the Rings by J.R. Tolkien. The Lord of the Rings was written to tell big things. And Tolkien was a English who had an incredible life. At the same time was normal life. But at the beginning of his life, he was born in 1892 in an English family living in South Africa. And when he was 5-year-old, his father died, and the mother goes back to England. And a fact marked his life: the conversion of his mother from the Anglican Church to the Catholic Church. And the conversion of the mother makes her cast out of the family. She will die when she was 35, sick, alone, and she dies. And all this because of her faith. And this fact is marking the life of this young boy. He was 14 or 15-year-old in a very profound way. The phone rang. Okay. God told me to move forward. So Tolkien leaves the sacrifice of the mother as a martyrdom and remains faithful to the faith of the mother. He will be a Catholic for the rest of his life, where it was not so simple to be Catholic. When he's 70, Tolkien wrote many books beside The Lord of the Rings, and also many letters, where he explains the real meaning of his works. When I think about the death of my mother, which was on her knees because of persecution, poverty, and the illnesses, and her effort to transmit faith to our kids. And when I remember the small bedroom we shared, rented in a postman house, where she died all alone, too sick to receive the ointment of the sick, I find it difficult to accept my kids move away from church. So this young boy grows educated as Catholic and becomes adult and becomes a professor of philology in Oxford University. He was going every day to Mass. And he's called to help writing the Jerusalem Bible version. There is a lot of tales that he wrote for his kids. And one day, one of his students doesn't know what to write. He gets this and on this white piece of paper, Tolkien, he had an idea. He wrote, "In a hole in the ground lived a hobbit." And he starts to tell his children, and he starts writing the book, The Hobbit, as a simple kid's story for his own children. And Bilbo Baggins starts, who is the first hobbit that is born from the fantasy of Tolkien. Fantasy, for Tolkien, fantasy. Fantasy is an instrument given to God to be fecondi. Be fertile, fruitful. So for Tolkien, fantasy is a gift given by God to man to be fruitful, to give life, to multiply beauty, and beauty talks about God. In this hole in the ground, there is a hobbit, Bilbo Baggins. And this hobbit lives extraordinary adventures. And in 1935, Tolkien, who had participated in the First World War, who had been a soldier in the First World War, so Tolkien is then invited to continue the story. So it was a bit like a TV serial. So to give you the context, Tolkien participated to the First World War, he's in the trenches. Then he writes The Hobbit. Then there is a Second World War, and he starts writing the Lord of the Rings. Why did we go from the Cana Gospel to the Lord of the Rings? The Lord of the Rings is basically a Catholic work. Fundamentally Catholic. It means that faith is the foundation of the structure of the work and of the contents of the work. It takes him 20 years to write it. He starts it in 37 and he finishes it in the 50s. Even movies were made, but let's not talk about this. Who read the book? Who saw the movies? I tell you the story in 2 minutes. 1,200 pages in 2 minutes. He may be not so happy, Mr. Tolkien. So who is the Lord of the Rings? Where is the Lord of the Rings happening? Talks about the Midland, which is squandered by war. Midland. In this Midland, the Middle Land is squandered by wars. This is the Middle Land. They are trying to show the map, but it's quite difficult. It was squandered by a horrible, brutal, bloody war. There was Sauron, who is evil, who wants to possess a ring, which is a symbol of evil. Okay, there is more rings, but they give a power. He's looking for this ring everywhere. to look for this. And this ring, so he is there, far away from the land. Sauron in reality is an eye fixed on a high tower, so he's a demon. And with this eye, he checks the whole world to find this ring. And this ring will end in the hands of the hobbits in a lost place. But they were so meaningless that he looks for the ring everywhere but where the hobbits are. They are so meaningless that nobody cares about them. Then, at a certain point of the story, Gandalf comes. And Gandalf goes to Frodo, who is the nephew of Bilbo, who had received the Lord from the uncle, and suggests him to take the ring, cross the whole land, and throw it inside the only place where the ring can be destroyed and evil won. Frodo, together with the company of the ring, he start this voyage. So who are the hobbits? The ring, it has two powers. It makes immortal. The second power is invisibility, immortality. Immortality seems fantastic and beautiful, but for Tolkien it is to freeze life, so that each minute is exhausting. It seems something not good but terrible, because immortality makes you get rid of God. And the other thing is invisibility. We would all like to be invisible for 5 minutes for different reasons. For example, my kids would like to be invisible when they have something in school. But think about a life where you're invisible. Nobody sees you. Nobody gets angry with you, but nobody looks at you. Nobody praises you, is able to console you, to caress you. So these two power of the rings cut you off from God and from the neighbor. It's the opposite of the two basic commandments of God. Love God and love your neighbor. The one who has the gift of the ring is alone, desperate, without God and without neighbors. And this is what the ring of evil does. It makes the one who is possessing it slave. That's why it's difficult to get rid of the ring, because the ring makes you slave. Who are the hobbits? Hobbits are low, they are half men. They're like 10, 11-year-old. They're not wise, they're not intelligent. They don't like many things, they have nothing special. They have no virtues, no magic gifts. But they like to do things. They like a lot to eat. But they eat cabbage and potatoes, and they like to go to parties, and they like gossip. There is a broadcast in Italy, Men and Women, which has 23% share. And the second most popular broadcast in Italy is another gossip program.
Sei milioni di pettegoli. L'Italia è il paese degli hobbit. 8.000 comuni di hobbit che se la passano bene. Che non vogliono rotture, perché loro talmente erano insignificanti, talmente erano proprio che non volevano rotture, che manco Sauron se le pone il problema di sti tipi qua. Loro non volevano rotture, non volevano stranezze, tranquilli, sereni, vivono in un posto che si chiama, quel quadratino lì sulla sinistra della piantina, che si chiama La Contea, un pratino tipo campo da golf, tutto rotondo, le casine rotonde, le finestrine rotonde e le porticine rotonde e le collinette rotonde e che palle, i Teletubbies. Peppa Pig. Adesso siete un po' cresciuti per sapere chi è Peppa Pig, ma chi ha i figli piccoli lo capisce chi è Peppa Pig. Il paese delle meraviglie, da non morì mai. E questi infatti se ne stanno tranquillamente per i cavoli loro. Tolkien sta descrivendo l'epoca in cui vive. Vi dicevo, lui vive a cavallo delle 2 guerre mondiali. L'Europa era devastata dalla guerra. L'Inghilterra, l'isola felice, e gli inglesi, i beoti, cioè la gente proprio più chiusa del mondo, che se fanno letteralmente i cavoli suoi, loro. Ma Tolkien sta descrivendo ognuno di noi. Tolkien sta descrivendo oggi questa società, 2 anni di pandemia. Pensavamo che chissà dove saremmo arrivati. Che cosa bella ci darà aver scoperto la casa, la famiglia. Quante cose belle verranno da questa cosa? Guardateci, guardate il mondo che ci abbiamo intorno. Gente spaventata dalla guerra, dalla instabilità economica, dalla paura.
Sorry, I switched off by mistake. Tolkien is describing society today. Hobbits, according to Tolkien, they were well planted on the ground. big feet. Hobbits had big feet without shoes, well planted on the ground, and their big ass planted on the sofa. The characteristic of the society, which is afraid of everything, which are sitting on the sofa. Even our Christian brothers, how many people are afraid of what is and what will be? They live in fear, closed in their own houses, closed in our own little world. So, first about myself, this is also first about myself, about how I feel. We cannot have a spiritual life without going beyond. We cannot encounter God, neither God nor other men, without opening the door of our fear, the round doors of our dens. We cannot experience God being in front of TV and being happy about the Vatican TV or online masses and rosaries. This is closing door to discovering freedom. Freedom is outside Frodo's house. Freedom is outside my house, your house, Abraham's house. Freedom is outside the Egypt of the Israeli people. We are called to walk, to go beyond, to look beyond our fears. Without this experience, which is a fantastic experience, we cannot have a real faith experience. We lose the sense of paradise. We lose the sense of communion and community.
Ho detto, arriva un personaggio. Questo personaggio che arriva.
Then Gandalf comes. I would like to start walking and show what Gandalf looked like. Gandalf is tall with the long beard, a bit dry, dressed in a grey pilgrim mantle. The pilgrim grey is the color of the walking man, between white and black, who is walking and falls and stands up, comes back, goes forward and falls again. Is the image of man who is looking for, that doesn't stop. Gandalf the Grey is a wayfarer. He enters in this land of the Hobbit. Who is Gandalf for you? Was there a Gandalf? Yes, otherwise he wouldn't be here. In my life there was a Gandalf. Who is Gandalf? Someone who came 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 months ago, and told that your story was not to be locked in your home, in your house. He saw in you something more than your being Hobbit. And he called you, and you trusted him. A prophet, a parent, a catechist, someone who gave you a leaflet to go to the seminar. Each one has a Gandalf. Someone that looked at you and looked at you beyond the appearance, beyond the appearance of the easy person you are, or closed and invisible person you maybe wanted to be. And he looked at you. This is the call of Peter and John. When Jesus was walking along the Sea of Galilee, he saw two and called them. And then he saw another two, James and John, who were together in the Father's boat, and he called them. And they left the boat and their father and followed him. Why me, who is old, who are not able?
Weird.
Why me? I'm not able to speak. I'm depressed. Moses is called to do something extraordinary. He didn't know how to speak. And God sends him to do something incredible. He did the same with Jeremiah, Jonas. And you are afraid? What is the mission? Frodo is asked to save the world by taking the ring to the baptismal font of the volcano. He is a loser. God calls a loser. So what about your mission? Is the same. And exaggerated. They call the crazy woman, and it's Rita fault, because talking about the Lord of the Rings goes back many years. And I want to talk about Abraham in this catechesis to the kids. And she said, no, Abraham, everybody talks about Abraham. Everybody talks about Abraham since for 5,000 years. Sorry, Lord. Pray for me when I will be in purgatory. And then I suggested, let's talk about the Lord of the Rings. I just seen the movie. Mission is the same. But that the mission is impossible is what your parents did when they baptized you. And that was repeated when we received the confirmation. And baptism and confirmation give your destiny. Everything he tells you to do, do it. This is the destiny of every baptized person. This is the destiny of every person. Love like this. But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other too. And for anyone who takes away your coat, do withhold even your shirt. Give to anyone who begs from you. And if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them to do you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that for you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High. But for he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. So this is our call. This is the call of the church. And for this is necessary to start a walk, to start walking, to start leave your house. And the spark that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 6 months ago, because someone called you to your true nature, fire. Why not you and not your father, your mother, your fiancé, your wife, not your kids? Why you and not them? Ask this to God. It's for you to decide. You're not alone. God doesn't give you superpower and doesn't solve your problems. If anything, the Lord creates problems, doesn't take them away, but doesn't leave you alone. According to Tolkien, all this that happens between 25th of December and 25th of March. Sauron falls on 25th of March. At the time of Tolkien, Easter was celebrated on a fixed date in England, 25th of March, which is anyway also the date of Annunciation. And the adventure starts on the 25th of December, which is the 25th of December. So the history happens in the time of Incarnation. So the adventure of the life of Jesus between Christmas and Easter is the life of every man. That starts with, like Frodo, it will be done to me according to his word. Yes, to the yes. Like yes of the wedding, in marriage, to say yes to the will of God, to go on in our walk in spite of all the difficulties, to say yes in every day, not just now that the Holy Spirit is filling this tent, but also when you will be back home with your father, with your illness. I don't know your stories. In our real story, God is expecting our yes. But you're not alone. And Frodo has a company. The word company, it comes from the Latin share the bread, cum panis. So it's a funny company. It's a sort of army, 9 losers. 10 for Tolkien is perfection, but it's 9 of them. So it's imperfect even in the number. They have to fight and defeat the absolute evil. You're not much better. So there is Gandalf, who looks like the one who is taking control, like Tarcisio, a big man who has a presence. We were 15, 17. Tarcisio was like God for us. So Gandalf comes. He will carry us all. He will lead us to faith. Or your parents. Gandalf like them. But he fails. He doesn't make any magics. He doesn't manage anything. In the movie, after 5 minutes, he's dead. Worse than that. So there's 8 left of them in this unknown land, devastated with dragons, evil people. So don't find a scandal in those who announce you the faith and then disappears. Maybe the one who announced faith has left the community, or it gave you scandal. It may happen. Because you don't need Gandalf for your walk of faith. To do your mission, Gandalf was just the push for the first 2 or 3 steps in the walk. Otherwise, it becomes like Gandalf of the Rings, not the Lord of the Rings. Then there are elves, beautiful people, like my husband. Same. Like angels, cultured, refined, nobles, immortal. The elves are immortal. They are also a little bit depressed. And they are a bit snob. They live in a paradise. But this paradise is at risk. Your perfect house, to see this country house they are in danger. Your nest is in danger because it puts you at risk to be locked in. So there is Gandalf in the Company of the Rings, elves and two men, Aragorn and Boromir. Boromir is a loser of the losers. He's the only one who dies in the mission. He had a lot of problems. Then there is Aragorn, who is the king. In the trilogy of the Lord of the Rings, Christ-like characters are Aragorn, Christ the king, Gandalf, Christ prophet, and the third one is Frodo, Christ the priest. He doesn't merge them into a single character because these characters, they have stories on which each one can reflect. And in baptism, we receive the three features together: priest, king, and prophet. Each of us, by the grace of baptism, is priest, king, and prophet, like Jesus. Then there are the dwarves. Give me 4 minutes. I have only 2 left. Dwarves are short, misers, selfish, and then the 4 hobbits. The best thing. Hobbits are 4 of them: Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pipino. Sam is the other hobbit that will bring Frodo up to the Fathom Mount and destroy the ring. Sam will say, I cannot carry the ring, but I can carry you carrying the ring. It's like the Sireni, the brother, the friend to the very end. Sam is the one who accompanies the friend in his mission, that accompanies to the very end. Hobbits are the poor of the Beatitudes, the humbles of the Mary's Magnificat. They are not heroes, because heroes show how strong is man. Saints show how strong is God. They are called to sanctity. They are called to sanctity, and this is a beautiful image. John Paul II tells something else. Poor are not just those in a dramatic economic or social situation. In the Old Testament, they are not a social category. They are those who choose to be poor, those who choose to be kneeling. Anna Wind, the poor in the Old Testament are those who are kneeling. And you are on your knees for 2 reasons: to pray, or when life is squeezing you and life puts you on your knees. We are oppressed by a life which is objectively heavy. There is the war in Ukraine today, not only the war in Ukraine today. Maybe beside you there is a war in your home, in your family, where you live. So who is Sauron? Sauron is the devil. Is fixed, is in high up, is evil, but is not incarnate. Is his eyes is fixed on evil. The devil is fixed on your mistake. It doesn't look like Jesus looked at you, because he looked at the good which is beyond you. The devil is accusing you about the evil which is today, which is not adequate. After 30 years, 40 years that you are having a life experience, are you still there? This is Sauron. Evil only knows evil. Good knows evil and good. And God chose what the world considers silly to confound the superbs. So I was born without any maternal instinct. I didn't want children. I must have confounded the devil. Where I wanted to go was God to tell me, and I had the maternal instinct of a toaster, and see what God made. The devil remains confused because you are nothing. Frodo confounded the evil. Nietzsche said God is dead. Superman, according to Nietzsche, philosopher, according to humanity in general. You are a half a man, you are a hobbit. You're not even able to pray every day. Where do you want to go? Superman doesn't save anyone. Superman dies. The half man resurrects. He's the only one who's resurrected. No Barabbas saved the world. This is a description of a battle in the Lord of the Rings. You cannot. In rode the Lord of Nazgul, a great back shape against the fire beyond and loomed up, grown to a vast menace of despair. In rode the Lord of Nazgul, under the archway that no enemy had ever yet passed, and fled, and all fled before his face, all save one. There, waiting, silent and still in the space before the gate, sat Gandalf upon Shadowfax. Shadowfax, who alone among the free horses of the earth endured the terror, unmoving, steadfast as a graven image in Radinen. You cannot enter here, said Gandalf, and the huge shadow halted. Go back to the abyss prepared for you. Go back, fall into the nothingness that awaits you and your master. Go. The back rider flung back his hood, and behold, he had a kingly crown, and yet upon no head visible was it set. The red firestone between it and the mountain shore was vast and dark. From a mouth unseen there came a deadly laughter. All fool, he said, all fool, this is my hour. Do you know death when you see it? Die now and curse in vain. And with that he lifted out his word, and flames ran down the blade. And in that very moment, away behind, in some courtyard of the city, a cock crowed. Shrill and clear it crowed, recking nothing of war nor or wizardry, welcoming only the morning that in the sky far above the shadows that was coming with the dawn. How ends the Lord of the Rings? With an announced resurrection in front of the power of the strength that has the singing of a cock, which happens. How is the Lord of the Rings ending? So it has actually three endings, because each story belongs to the story of salvation. Even if there is only 10 days of life, even if you are crooked, old, if you are dry physically and spiritually, Sam goes back home. I am returned, the friend, the Sireni, goes back home and he gets married with Rosie. He comes back different. Nobody comes back as he left. You are like this, you know, will never change. This is what Sauron wants us to believe. Is not true. Each one comes back from how he was when he left. They have grown up. That's why there is not only one person that starts in a way and finishes in one way. And there are two characters, the grace and providence. And grace is the master, the one who is really destroying the ring is Gollum. God is using your sin, your slavery, for a much bigger good than what you see, much higher than what you live. God is using good and your evil. The grace of God is using your evil Without Judah, nobody would have been saved. And providence. So the first is Sam going back home different and restarts a life that was shattered, had been shattered. And Frodo goes with the elves Frodo goes with the elves somewhere ahead. Time is not anymore a rounding wheel, doesn't return back. Frodo is called to go beyond, to go to the eternal life. Eternal life is ahead of us. This is the hope that starts from a converted heart. Doesn't mean who has arrived. A heart who is said yes. So that it can take your availability to restart for this voyage that will save you and the world. And the third final is the aim of all the works of Tolkien. So there is a love story. Two people in love. Aragorn, who is this king. The Return of the King is a third of the novel of the trilogy. And then Éowyn, who is an elf woman who gives up immortality to marry Aragorn. And the two of them get married and they will reign for many years. And when he dies, he looks at her and says beautiful things. Beyond the end of the world, there is not a life of melancholy, of beautiful memories. Mary is giving a very big mission. We're not alone. The three main characters grace of God, even if it looks strange, doesn't leave you. Providence, the hands of God that embrace you, that protect you. And the third, the church. In the last page of the Lord of the Rings, Gandalf is saying, So there are other evils that may come. Our aim is to do what is possible for the saving the years where we live. Unrooting evil from the fields that we know and leaving to those who come after us a land healthy and clean to cultivate. But the time that we'll have doesn't depend upon us. Other evils there are that may come, for Sarnor is himself but a servant of a misery. Yet it is not our part to master all the ties of the world, but to do what is in us for the succors of those years wherein we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till, and whether they shall have it is not ours to rule.